Scrolling background. Right, at the moment in my game, as my character moves left and right, you'll notice that everything in the background, so the mountains, the trees, the barn, the fence, even the cow, and the clouds, they all kind of stay in the same position. So it kind of looks like there's just an image set as the background, so it is 2D. Now, one of the things I've actually been interested in quite trying to do is actually make my mountains, my clouds, and my trees in particular at this stage move in my background. So it gives that a perception of depth then. But one of the things you might have noticed up in the top left-hand corner, the actual sun itself, as I kind of move along, it kind of follows me as I go along as well, as if it would do in a real life situation. And what I mean by that is the sun takes 24 hours to go across the sky. So playing a game for 50 seconds or 100 seconds, whatever it was, that sun is not really going to move position much. So just to kind of show you how I did that, first of all, over on the left-hand side where we've got our main camera, I've actually dragged and dropped my sky and sun assets, or my sun here, and I've got sky somewhere down there as well, in amongst this. There it is, to actually be connected to my main camera. So as my player moves, and I got code to set it up so the camera follows my player, then the sun will also do it as well. So it's kind of always within the camera shot. Now, so that's not actually relative to the scrolling background, but I just kind of wanted to show you how you can do that. So if I just minimize that down. Now, my scenery at this point, I've got clouds, I've got mountains, got the barn, and so on, and I've also got a load of trees which I've got sorry, within the scene separately. Now, my clouds and my mountain are actually big, long graphics, as you can see down here. But my trees, I kind of didn't want to do these graphics separately. I've actually brought them in individually, like I've got here, dragged them up, and I flip the X's and Y's so they face opposite ways, like these two here, and then scaled them up a little bit. Now, I want these to scroll as well in the background, but actually scroll more than the mountains and the clouds because they're the closest things to our character and our camera. But before I can do that, so rather than me actually putting code on every single tree to do it, within my scenery, I'm actually going to add a empty child, or I think that's the word for it, create an empty. I'll call it trees, and then all my loose trees which I've got down here, so there's 6 of them altogether, right the way to the end of the level, I'm just going to drag and drop them into trees. So they're all within that. So when I click on trees, then they will all become selected rather than just them as an individual basis. So I'm just going to drag that up here as well because these are the 3 things I'm going to be using. Right, so before we actually do any coding to make our background move, what we do need to do is add a rigid body to the things we want to move. So my clouds, I'm going to add a component, and it's going to be physics 2D and rigid body. I always look for it, but I know it's supposed to scroll down, but there it is, it's been selected, and I have to set the gravity scale to 0. Otherwise, when we press play, the clouds will literally fall down and collide into things and even go through the floor, stuff like that. So I also need to do it on mountains, add component. In fact, there's probably a quick way of doing this by highlighting them all and doing it. But now I've started, so again, gravity scale 0. And I'm also going to do it to trees, which if I do it to trees, it will actually add that rigid body to all the trees which are within my trees object then. So if I add that component, go to physics 2D, rigid body 2D, and gravity scale 0. So now if I play the game, nothing will actually happen. It'll just mean that they've got this attached to them. Nothing will change other than from what I just showed you at the beginning of the video. But what we actually need to do now is actually start adding some script to these. So I think if I highlight all 3 of them, so I held down shift and then had all 3 connected, I'm going to try add in a script. Oh, yeah, it does come up on it. So scrolling background, I'm going to call it, I think. And I press enter and I create an ad. It should build a script down here somewhere eventually for us, which is connected to all 3 of these things. So if I click on them individually, they will have this script here at the bottom, which is the one I'm going to be editing in a moment. So if I open that up in Visual Studio, and I'm hoping it'll load up quickly because it took ages to load there when I first tried to do this. Do I pause? Do I pause? Right, so far so good. So it's loaded up over here. I'll double click it to open up. Oh, brilliant, that was quick. Now I've already got code highlighted So I'm just going to, as in copied from one of my special Word documents, which I'm just going to paste in place of this. And you can kind of pause and, oh, please tell me it's pasted. Oh, it's not, is it? Or is it? I might have to pause a second. Be with me. I'm back. It did do it. It just took ages to paste in. But anyway, this is pretty much the same code as what you would have done for the player movement at the beginning of this playlist. And the idea is you did define what speed each of these things are going to move at. So the mountain, the clouds, and the trees. We also need to kind of make sure that they've got a rigid body on them, which we've done. And as and when it goes, it will dictate well, basically it is exactly the same code. I don't know why I'm explaining it to you. But the key thing is we make sure that's saved. So I've controlled S there, and I'll do it there as well because everything seems to be going really painfully slow at this stage. And then when we go back into Unity, and it does this little thing, I think I say that in all my videos as well, it does this little thing of kind of accepting the code and giving me the thumbs up, hopefully, but everything's good. And it's still doing it, still doing it. Oh, come on. Hey, there we go. So the code's in there. Now, for each of these things then, so the clouds, the mountains, and the trees, we will have a speed associated with it. So the speed of our player, as it's going from left to right, is somewhere down on in amongst all the code I've got set up for it. But I think I've got it set as 10. Now, so that means when I go right, I move to the 10 speed to the right. If I go left, it goes 10 speed to the left. But our mountains and clouds, we actually want them to move in the opposite way. So what I mean by that is then for the trees, if I get trees selected here, our speed, I don't know if this is going to be a bit quick, but I'm going to try 2, no, -2 in fact. And you'll see why now in a moment. And I'll do the same for my mountains, which are going to be, well, actually, let's make it quicker so it's a lot easier to see on the video. So -5 for our trees. For our mountains, which have also got the code set up on it, is going to be -3. And our clouds, which are the furthest thing away, we could do the mountains as furthest away really, but I'm going to do that as a -1. Okay, so when I run it, when I play, and hopefully it won't take us too long to get to this stage, what should happen, as I move to the right, then the mountains, the clouds, and the trees should move to the left. So as we go, oh, come on, come on. Yeah, there we go. So you can see in the background, the mountain and the trees are moving for at different paces then. And if I wanted to, I could even get some trees to come into the foreground so that it actually is in front of the enemy and the chicken. And I would just need to change that speed so it's even quicker. So you can change the speed to make the move, but as you notice, some of the things don't look quite right on you, especially the fact that I've got a gap in the ground, so I might need to fill that gap in so it doesn't look so odd like that. And also, my fence is slightly back from me. My cow is slightly back from me because clearly scale-wise that's not the right size. I forget what the enemy's further on, and the barn is a bit further away. So I'm going to have to play around a little bit to maybe add code to these things as well. And I think I've got fence at the end of the level. So it actually kind of gives that depth then, so it looks like it's actually a 3D environment within a 2D game.